I stood barefoot on the balcony of my newly purchased penthouse, champagne flute in hand, watching the San Francisco skyline transform into a canvas of gold and crimson as the sun began its descent. The caption had just gone live on my Instagram. Gift to myself, my penthouse, my peace. I hadn't expected it to cause such a stir, but within an hour, my phone was buzzing incessantly. 47 missed. Calls, over 100 text messages, and one particular DM that made my stomach clench. Savannah, please take down that post. People are asking questions. It was from my mother, the same woman who hadn't bothered to call or text me on my birthday that very morning. The same woman who had been photographed laughing in an extravagant floral gown at my brother Carter's fundraiser gala just hours earlier. They hadn't forgotten my birthday. They had erased it. So I rewrote the narrative, on marble floors, under vaulted ceilings, in my own name, on my own terms. And now, the people who had dismissed me couldn't stop talking about me. Dramatic, they called it. Attention-seeking. Inappropriate for a read. But I recognized what they couldn't articulate. This was power. The quiet, unapologetic kind that emerges after a lifetime of being told to stay small. I took another sip of champagne, letting the cool evening breeze caress my face. 33 years of quiet acquiescence had culminated in this moment of silent rebellion. The city lights began to twinkle against the darkening sky, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly seen, even if I had to be the one to finally see myself. I wasn't always invisible. Growing up as a Reed meant polished smiles, press-worthy charity appearances, and weekly brunches with San Francisco's elite. Our family name opened doors that remained firmly shut to most, but only one of us was ever truly celebrated. Carter, my older brother, the golden boy, the legacy, the heir to my father's venture capital empire. I was the footnote. I was Reed's daughter, the one who does something with marketing, or is it event planning? While Carter's face graced local magazines and charity galas, I built Horizon Communications into one of the city's fastest-growing boutique PR firms from scratch. My firm transformed overlooked startups into million-dollar names. We crafted narratives that changed perceptions, shifted markets, and occasionally made history. But my family never asked what I actually did. I set my empty glass on the glass-topped patio table and wandered back inside my new sanctuary. Everything gleamed. The waterfall quartz countertops, the wide plank oak floors, the floor-to-ceiling windows that turned the city into living art. I ran my fingers along the cool marble of the kitchen island, still unable to believe this space was mine. The Reed family fortune could have purchased 10 such penthouses without blinking. But this one was different. This one was earned through late nights, strategic brilliance, and the quiet determination of a woman who had been told her whole life that her achievements were cute and impressive for a side project. My phone buzzed again. Another text. From my mother. Savannah, this is getting out of hand. Call me. I silenced the phone and placed it face down on the counter. The milestone birthdays had always been the most telling. At 14, they threw Carter a yacht party with 100 of his closest friends. Mine? A leftover cake in the fridge from someone else's event with Happy Birthday Savannah, hastily written in grocery store. Frosting. At 21, he got a Rolex and a convertible. I got a text. Happy birthday, darling. Carter says hi too. We're in Paris for his fellowship presentation. Even then, I told myself it didn't matter. I had my work. I had my independence. I didn't need a spotlight. I didn't need them. Until this year. My 33rd birthday. The year I closed the $1.6 million deal with Lumatech, my agency's biggest win. The year I landed a performance bonus large enough to buy a home, or in my case, a luxury penthouse with full views of the bay. I hadn't planned to make a statement. But then again, they made theirs first. My birthday fell on a Thursday this year. I didn't expect a parade, just an acknowledgement, a message, a call, something. Instead, I opened Instagram to see my family, every one of them, gathered in black tie attire for Carter's fundraiser gala. My mother's dress matched the roses. My father was laughing beside the mayor. Carter stood on stage thanking the most supportive family a man could ask for. Not a single mention of me. Not even a wish you were here. But they knew. Because 3 days earlier, I had forwarded them the press release about Horizon's achievement. Our firm was named one of the top 10 PR agencies on the West Coast. I'd mentioned my bonus, not to brag, but because for once, I wanted them to see that I had built something significant. No response. And yet, in a private family thread that Carter accidentally added me to. I saw it all. Savannah can help with the floral coordination, my mother had written. Now that she has the money, she should give back to the family. The Reed name helped her, after all. She can at least sponsor one of Carter's auction tables, my father added. I wasn't a daughter. I was a resource. But that night, something in me broke. Or rather, something finally awoke. I poured myself another glass of champagne and walked back to the balcony. In the distance, I could see the lights of the Reed family estate on Pacific Heights, glowing like a beacon of old money and older expectations. Tomorrow, the calls would continue. The demands would escalate. The guilt trips would intensify. But tonight belonged to me, to my achievement, to my worth. I raised my glass to the city below, to the woman I was becoming, to the life I was choosing. Happy birthday to me, I whispered to the wind. And for once, I meant it. I took a long walk through the marina the night of my birthday, watching the water lap quietly under the soft hum of the city. My phone buzzed continuously with work emails, congratulations, admiration, respect, from the world, but not from my own blood. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my hotel suite. I'd been staying at the Fairmont while finalizing my plans. My phone showed 17 missed calls, 15 from my mother, 2 from Carter. I ignored them all and opened my laptop instead. The first email was from Julia, my assistant. Congrats again on the Lumatech deal. BTW, did you see this listing? It just hit the private market. Thought of you immediately. Attached was a private listing for a penthouse at the Avery Residences, a breathtaking corner unit, flooded with natural light, full bay view, concierge, private elevator. Price? $2.9 million. I stared at the photos, scrolling through images of soaring ceilings, custom finishes, and a terrace that seemed to float above the city. For the first time in my life, I didn't hesitate. Because what better birthday gift could I give myself than removal from their narrative? I didn't need another family photo where I'm cropped on the side. I needed a home with space for me. I called the listing agent immediately. I'd like to see the property today, I said, and I'm prepared to make an offer. 3 hours later, I stood in what would become my sanctuary. My footsteps echoed on the hardwood floors as I walked from room to room, imagining a life untethered from expectations I could never meet. It's a spectacular property, the agent said, watching me carefully. There's already significant interest. I turned to her, the decision already made. I'll pay asking price, all cash. We can close as soon as possible. Her eyes widened slightly. That's very decisive. I know what I want, I replied. For once. Within days, I had signed the papers, paid the down payment in full, selected custom furnishings, commissioned art, ordered a wine wall, arranged for fresh orchids to be delivered weekly, designed a private workspace with the best view in the house. Then I scheduled my housewarming brunch. Invitations went out to clients, friends, team members, mentors, and the woman who watched me grow when my own mother didn't. Margot, my childhood nanny, now 76, who brought me blueberry muffins every birthday and reminders that I mattered. No Reed was invited, but the invitation was public, through one caption that would go viral: gift to myself, my penthouse, my peace. I hadn't posted on social media in months. My accounts were primarily professional, showcasing client wins and industry insights. Personal. Revelations weren't my style, until now. The photo was simple. Me in a silk jumpsuit, barefoot on my terrace, champagne in hand, the Golden Gate Bridge visible in the distance. My expression wasn't smiling exactly. It was serene, confident, free. I hit post and set my phone aside, not expecting much. Within minutes, the notifications began flooding in. Likes, comments, shares, direct messages. From colleagues, Queen move. From clients, this is why we love working with you. From industry peers, power statement, I'm here for it. But the responses that touched me most came from women I'd never met. You just gave permission for the rest of us to choose ourselves. I've been trying to earn my family's approval for 40 years. This post made me cry. Ordering champagne right now, I deserve to celebrate myself too. By evening, the post had been shared thousands of times. My follower count tripled. 3 lifestyle magazines requested interviews. A luxury brand slid into my DMs about a potential partnership. And then came the text from Carter. What the hell, Savannah? Mom's having a meltdown. Dad's furious. What are you trying to prove? I didn't respond. Then came a call. From my father that went straight to voicemail. Savannah Reed, this display is beneath you and embarrassing to the family. Call me immediately. I didn't. By the time my mother's DM arrived, please take the post down. People are asking questions. I was sitting on my new terrace, watching the sunset with a strange sense of peace. They weren't angry that I'd bought a penthouse. They were angry that I'd done it without them, without their permission, without their guidance, without making it about them. For the first time, I realized how the narrative had always worked. I was supposed to achieve, but never outshine. Succeed, but never independently. Exist, but never fully occupy my own space. My phone rang again. My mother's face appeared on the screen. For a moment, I hesitated. 33. Years of conditioning made my finger hover over the accept button. The good daughter, the team player, the one who keeps the peace. But then I remembered Thursday morning, waking up to silence, checking my phone throughout the day, watching their smiling faces at Carter's event. I declined the call. Instead, I texted Julia, schedule calls with the interior designers for tomorrow, and let's move. Up the housewarming, 2 weeks from now. Her response was immediate. On it. BTW, your post is everywhere. Even Adweek picked it up as an example of authentic personal branding. You just became your own best case study. I smiled, setting down my phone and looking out at the city lights. The sun had fully set now, and San Francisco glittered like a jewelry box that had been flung open. Beautiful, valuable, each light representing a life, a story, a choice. My choice was clear. I was no longer waiting for an invitation to my own life. The next morning, I woke to the sound of my phone ringing. It was Margot. I saw your post, she said, her voice warm with pride. It's about time. You think so? I asked, suddenly feeling like a little girl seeking approval. Savannah, do you remember what I used to tell you when your mother would forget to pick you up from ballet? I smiled. That some people don't know how to hold the sun, so they put it in a box. Exactly. You were always too bright for them, my dear. Too full of your own light. They could never figure out how to celebrate you without dimming you. Tears pricked at my eyes. I thought if I just worked hard enough, achieved enough. Some people aren't capable of seeing beyond their own reflections, she said gently. Your family looks at you and only sees what you can do for them, not who you actually are. After we hung up, I stood in my new kitchen, running my hands along the cool countertops. This space was a statement, yes, but it was also a sanctuary, a place where I could finally, fully exist. My phone buzzed with a text from Carter. Whatever this phase is, let's talk. You can't cut us off forever. But I wasn't cutting them off. I was cutting myself free, and that made all the difference. The week following my viral post passed in a blur of designer consultations, furniture deliveries, and an avalanche of media requests. Horizon's Instagram followers doubled, and 3 potential clients reached out specifically mentioning my bold personal brand. I'd accidentally turned my birthday disappointment into a business opportunity, but the Reed family hurricane was brewing. Savannah, this has gone far enough, my father's voicemail began. The Crawfords asked about your situation at the club yesterday. Your mother is beside herself. Call us immediately. The Crawfords? Of course. San Francisco old money, who probably thought a woman buying her own multi-million-dollar property was either a cry for help or a sign of moral decline. I was arranging fresh peonies in my new living room when the doorbell rang. The concierge's voice came through the intercom. Ms. Reed, there's a Mrs. Elizabeth Reed here to see you. She's quite insistent. My mother. Here. Now. I took a deep breath. Please send her up. I straightened my cashmere sweater and waited, suddenly aware of my racing heart. When the private elevator doors opened, my mother stepped out looking exactly as she always did, impeccably dressed in a Chanel suit, pearls gleaming at her throat, not a hair out of place. Her eyes widened as she took in the panoramic views, the soaring ceilings, the carefully curated furniture. So this is what's more important than family, she said by way of greeting. I didn't rise to the bait. Would you like some tea? She ignored my offer, walking slowly around the living room, examining everything with the critical eye of someone looking for flaws. Do you have any idea what you've done? She finally asked, turning to face me. The Bissetts saw your post, the Montgomerys. Even Senator Harrington's wife commented on it. And, she repeated, incredulous, you've made us look like terrible parents. People are asking why you weren't at Carter's gala, why you're buying property on your own without family support, what kind of statement you're trying to make. I poured myself a cup of tea, taking my time. And what have you been telling them? That you're going through something, that we're worried about you, that this behavior is completely out of character. I set my cup down carefully. Is it, though? When have you ever really known my character, Mother? Her perfectly lined lips pressed together. Don't be dramatic, Savannah. This isn't like you. That's just it, I said quietly. You have no idea what I'm like. You never asked. You never noticed. She sighed, the sound heavy with exasperation. We've given you everything. The best schools, connections for your little business, the Reed name, my little business that just closed $1 million deal. That was named one of the top agencies on the West Coast. My voice remained steady, but I felt something shifting inside me. And let's be clear, I never used the Reed name. I built Horizon. On my own. With our connections? No, I interrupted firmly. Without them. I never leveraged the family name. Not once. She looked genuinely surprised. That's absurd. Of course you did. Name one Reed contact who became my client. Just one. She opened her mouth, then closed it. You can't, I continued, because there aren't any. I started with tech startups no one believed in. Companies. The established firms wouldn't touch. I built my reputation from nothing. A flash of something, confusion, disbelief, crossed her face before she regained her composure. None of this explains why you're publicly embarrassing the family. Taking down that post would be a start toward making amends. Making amends? I repeated. For what exactly? Buying myself a birthday present when my own family couldn't be bothered to acknowledge my existence that day? Her cheeks flushed slightly. Your birthday? Is that what this tantrum is about? It wasn't just my birthday, Mother. It was never being enough. It was always being an afterthought. It was watching Carter receive everything while I received scraps of attention. You're being childish, she snapped. We've always treated you and Carter equally. I laughed then, a sound so genuine it seemed to startle her. Equally? When was the last time you asked about my work? My life? My accomplishments? When have you ever celebrated me the way you celebrate him? This is ridiculous. We've always supported you. You forgot my birthday, Mother. Or rather, you didn't forget. You chose to ignore it while attending Carter's gala. Her expression hardened. We were supporting your brother's charitable work. It's not always about you, Savannah. It's never about me, I corrected her. And that's the point. She paced to the window, her reflection superimposed over the city skyline. For a moment, she looked smaller than I remembered. Your father expects you at Sunday dinner this week, she finally said. We can discuss how to move forward. From this episode, I took a deep breath. I won't be there. She turned sharply. Excuse me? I won't be at Sunday dinner. Not this week. Not next week. You can't just... I can, I said simply. That's what you don't understand. I can choose myself. I can create boundaries. I can decide what I will and won't accept. Her eyes narrowed. So you're cutting us off? Over a missed birthday? I shook my head. I'm not cutting you off. I'm just not accepting the terms anymore. When you're ready to see me, really see me, we can talk. Your father won't stand for this. I'm 33 years old, Mother. Dad's approval stopped being currency a long time ago. She gathered her handbag, her movements stiff with anger. This isn't over, Savannah. As she stepped back into the elevator, she delivered her parting shot. That Carter thread you mentioned? The one you were accidentally added to? He meant to add you. He wanted you to see it, to wake you up. The doors closed on her smug expression, but her words lingered in the air. I stood frozen, replaying our family dynamics in my mind. Could she be right? Had Carter been trying to provoke me all along? I walked to my phone and pulled up the message thread in question. Rereading it with fresh eyes, I noticed something I'd missed before. After my mother's comment about me helping with flowers and my father's suggestion about sponsoring a table, there was Carter's response. Maybe if we actually acknowledged her achievements once in a while, she wouldn't be so distant. Just a thought. I'd been so hurt by my parents. Messages that I'd completely missed my brother's defense of me. My phone buzzed with a text from Carter. Mom just left your place. You okay? I hesitated, then typed, Did you really add me to that thread on purpose? His response came quickly. Yes. They've never seen you. I thought maybe seeing themselves through your eyes might help. Why didn't you just tell me? Would you have believed me? You've spent years convincing yourself their approval doesn't matter. I sat down heavily on my sofa. I missed your point entirely. Story of our relationship, he replied. Look, I know I've benefited from their favoritism. I should have pushed back harder. I'm sorry. Tears pricked at my eyes. Was it possible I'd misread more than just that thread? Had I been so focused on what I lacked that I'd missed what was actually there? Have coffee with me, his next text read. Just us. No parents, no Reed family drama. I stared at my phone, torn between the hurt of decades and the possibility that I'd missed something important. Tomorrow, I finally replied. 10 a.m., the cafe on the ground floor of my building. I'll be there, he answered. And Savannah, happy belated birthday. Your new place looks amazing. I set down my phone and walked to the window, gazing out at the city that had always been my true home. The sun was setting behind the Golden Gate Bridge, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. For the first time, I wondered if the walls I'd built to protect myself had also kept out potential allies. Carter arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early. I watched him from the elevator as he paced nervously, checking his watch, adjusting his tie. He looked more anxious than I'd ever seen him. You're early, I said, approaching his table. He stood quickly. I didn't want to give you any reason to change your mind. We sat across from each other, two people who shared DNA but who had grown into strangers. The silence stretched between us, filled with unspoken history. Your place is incredible, he finally said. I saw it on Instagram. The views alone. Thank you, I replied, then added, I'm sorry I didn't invite you to see it. He shook his head. I get it. I wouldn't have invited me either. The waitress brought our coffees. His black, mine with oat milk. He remembered. I've been thinking about what Mom said, I began. About you adding me to all that thread deliberately. Carter nodded, his expression serious. I did. They don't see what they're doing to you, what they've always done. I thought if you saw it directly, maybe you'd finally stand up for yourself. But why not just tell me? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Honestly, because I'm a coward, because I've benefited from their favoritism my entire life, and calling it out directly would mean acknowledging my own complicity. His candor surprised me. I always thought you were oblivious to it. How could I be? He asked. The difference in how they treated us was so obvious it was painful. But I was a kid too, Savannah. A kid being told I was special, exceptional, the future. What was I supposed to do? Reject it? I stirred my coffee slowly. No, I guess not. But I should have done more as we got older, he continued. Called them out. Redirected attention to your achievements. Something. Why didn't you? His eyes met mine. Because it was easier not to. Because I liked being the golden child. Because I was afraid if I pointed the spotlight at you, they might actually see how much more impressive you are. I nearly choked on my coffee. What? Come. On, Savannah. You built a successful company from nothing. You've done it all on your own terms without trading on the family name. Do you know how remarkable that is? How much courage that takes. I felt tears threatening and blinked them back. I never thought you saw it that way. I've always seen it, he said quietly. I've just been too selfish to acknowledge it. We sat in silence for a moment, the cafe bustling around us, life continuing while something fundamental shifted between us. That fundraiser, I finally said. The one on my birthday. He winced. I tried to get them to change the date. They wouldn't budge. Something about the mayor's schedule. I should have pushed harder. You knew it was my birthday? Of course I knew, he said, looking genuinely hurt. I send you a, gift every year. The first edition Fitzgerald last year, the vintage Cartier watch the year before. I stared at him. Those were from you? The cards were just signed family. Carter's face fell. Mom said she'd make sure you knew they were from me specifically. He shook his head. I should have known better. Why not just call me yourself? I did try. Last year. The year before. You never picked up. And suddenly I remembered. The missed calls from Carter on my birthdays. Calls I'd ignored because I assumed he was just relaying messages from our parents. I thought, I began, then stopped, recalibrating years of assumptions. I thought you were calling on their behalf. No, he said simply. I was calling on mine. The realization hit me like a physical blow. How much of my narrative about my family, about Carter, had I constructed from assumptions and hurt? How much had I missed by protecting myself from further disappointment? The post, I said suddenly. My Instagram post about the penthouse. You didn't seem angry about it. Why would I be? It was badass. You finally stopped diminishing yourself to make room for their egos. I laughed, a genuine sound that felt foreign in the context of a conversation about our family. That's not how Mom and Dad see it. No, he agreed. They're furious. Dad actually used the word betrayal, as if your success somehow betrays them. And what do you think? I think, he paused, choosing his words carefully. I think maybe it's time we both stop performing for an audience that can't appreciate the show. I raised an eyebrow. Meaning? Meaning I'm tired too, Savannah. Tired of being their proxy, their legacy, their future. Tired of having my life planned out according to their vision instead of my own. But you've always seemed to embrace it. He shrugged. It was easier than fighting it, and I do believe in the Foundation's work. But the rest of it, the social climbing, the constant positioning, the using people as props in their narrative, I'm over it. I studied him, seeing my brother clearly perhaps for the first time. What would you do? If you could choose, focus exclusively on the Foundation. Expand our education initiatives. Maybe move operations away from San Francisco, somewhere the overhead isn't so ridiculous and the money could do more good. Have you told them this? He laughed. Bitterly. Try suggesting to William and Elizabeth Reed that their son might want to leave the social epicenter of San Francisco for, say, Oakland or Sacramento. The very idea is heresy. I took a sip of my coffee, thinking. So we're both trapped in their narrative. Were, he corrected. You broke free. Spectacularly, I might add. And now they're scrambling to regain control. Exactly. Mom's been in damage control mode since your post went viral. Dad's making calls to contain the situation. They genuinely can't comprehend that you would choose your own path. I felt a strange mix of sadness and liberation washing over me. What happens now? Carter leaned forward. That depends. What do you want, Savannah? Really want? The question caught me off guard. What did I want? Beyond recognition, beyond approval, beyond the desperate need to matter in my family's eyes? I began slowly, to live without apology, to stop shrinking myself to fit their expectations, to create space for my own life, my own achievements, my own joy. He nodded. Then do that. And maybe, if you're open to it, we could try being actual siblings instead of competitors in a game neither of us designed. I felt something tight in my chest begin to loosen. I'd like that. You're housewarming, he said suddenly. When is it? Next Saturday. Why? May I come? Not as a Reed family representative, just as your brother. I hesitated, then nodded. Yes, but just you, not Mom and Dad. Understood. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand briefly. And Savannah, I'm proud of you. I always have been. I just didn't know how to say it without sounding like I was playing into their dynamic. As we parted ways outside the cafe, I felt lighter somehow, as if I'd set down a weight I'd been carrying for decades. The story I'd been telling myself about my family, about Carter, wasn't the whole truth. It never had been. I took the elevator up to my penthouse, my mind churning with new possibilities. The doors opened directly into my foyer, and I stood there for a moment, taking in the space I'd created for myself. It wasn't just a statement anymore. It wasn't just a rebellion. It was a beginning. The day of my housewarming arrived with perfect San Francisco weather, clear skies, gentle breeze, and views that stretched all the way to Marin. I'd spent the morning arranging fresh flowers, placing candles, and making sure every detail was perfect. This wasn't just a party. It was a declaration. At precisely noon, the elevator delivered my first guest, Margot. Elegant in a pale blue dress, her silver hair swept into a simple chignon. Look at you, she said, embracing me. All grown up and magnificent. She handed me a small package wrapped in cream paper. Open it now. It's not for show. Inside was a framed photograph I'd never seen before. Me at 6 years old, standing in Margot's kitchen, flour dusting my cheeks, a chocolate cake proudly displayed on the counter. My birthday, I whispered, recognizing the scene. The year they forgot completely. The year I taught you to bake your own cake, she corrected gently, because I wanted you to know that celebrating yourself was always an option. I hugged her tightly, breathing in her familiar scent of lavender and Earl Grey tea. Thank you for being there when they weren't. I wouldn't have missed it for the world, she replied, and I wouldn't miss today either. As more guests arrived, colleagues, clients, friends, my penthouse filled with laughter and conversation. Julia had outdone herself with the catering. Elegant bite-sized offerings circulated on silver trays, champagne flowed freely, and a string quartet played softly in the corner. I mingled easily, accepting congratulations, showing off the views, discussing Horizon's recent successes. But part of me kept glancing toward the elevator, wondering if Carter would actually come. At 2 o'clock he arrived, alone as promised, carrying a large gift box. "This place is even more impressive in person," he said, taking in the soaring ceilings and panoramic views. "Seriously, Savannah, it's spectacular." "Thank you," I replied, genuinely pleased by his approval. "I'm glad you came." He handed me the box. "This is for you, not a late birthday present. Consider it a housewarming gift." Inside was a beautiful crystal vase, clearly antique, with delicate engravings of birds in flight. "It was Grandmother Reed's," he explained. "She always said it should be yours." I ran my fingers over the smooth crystal, surprised. "I never knew that. Mom had it stored away," he said quietly. "I retrieved it. It belongs here, with you." Something in his tone made me look up. Won't she notice it's missing? Probably. I left a note. I couldn't help but laugh. "You're stirring the pot." He grinned. "Maybe I'm learning from my sister." I introduced him to my guests, watching with interest as he charmed my colleagues and impressed my clients. This was a different Carter than the one who performed at family functions. More relaxed, more authentic, funnier. "Your brother is not what I expected," Julia murmured as we stood by the wine bar. "From your stories, I thought he'd be more entitled, arrogant," I suggested. "Exactly. But he's actually kind of great." I watched him across the room, deep in conversation with my biggest client about educational initiatives in underserved communities. Maybe I never really knew him, I admitted. The party flowed seamlessly from afternoon into evening. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow across the terrace, I stepped outside for a moment of quiet reflection. The city spread out below me, a tapestry of lights beginning to twinkle in the gathering dusk. "There you are," Carter said, joining me. "Hiding at your own party?" "Just breathing it all in," I replied. "Sometimes I can't believe this is actually my life." He leaned against the railing beside me. "You earned every bit of it." We stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. "I have something to tell you," he said finally, "and I wanted to do it here, away from Mom and Dad's influence." "That sounds ominous." He took a deep breath. "I'm stepping down as head of the Reed Foundation." I turned to face him, shocked. "What? Why?" "Because it's not my passion. It's Dad's legacy project. And because I want to build something of my own, just like you did." "Does Dad know?" Carter shook his head. "Not yet. I'm telling them tomorrow. He'll be furious. Probably. But I'm tired of living his version of my life." He glanced at me. "Your post, your courage. It made me realize I have choices too." I felt a complicated mix of emotions: pride, concern, and a strange sense of responsibility. "What will you do instead?" "I've been developing an education technology platform on the side for 2 years, he revealed. "Software that brings advanced learning tools to schools that can't afford expensive programs. We're ready to launch, but I've been too afraid to fully commit." "That's amazing," I said, genuinely impressed. "Why didn't you ever mention it?" "The same reason you stopped telling the family about your achievements. What was the point?" He smiled ruefully. "Besides, I wanted to prove I could build something without the Reed name opening doors." The parallels between us struck me forcefully. We'd both been shaped by the same dynamics, just from different positions within them. "What's your company called?" I asked. "Lighthouse Learning." He hesitated, then added, "Actually, I could use some PR help with the launch. Know anyone good?" I laughed. "I might have a few connections." Back inside, the party continued in full swing. I caught sight of Margot watching us through the glass doors, a satisfied smile on her face. She raised her champagne glass in a small toast when our eyes met. Later, as the last guests were leaving, Margot pulled me aside. "You've created something beautiful here," she said, gesturing to the space around us. "Not just the apartment, this gathering of people who truly see you." "It feels right," I admitted. "For the first time in a long time." She patted my cheek affectionately. "Your mother called me yesterday." I stiffened. "What did she want?" To enlist me in her campaign to bring you back to your senses, Margot said with a slight eye roll. I told her your senses seem perfectly intact to me. How did she take that? About as well as you'd expect. She mentioned Sunday dinner again. I sighed. She's relentless. She's afraid, Margot corrected. You've changed the rules of a game she's been winning for decades. That's terrifying for someone like Elizabeth. After everyone had gone, Carter helped me carry glasses to the kitchen. Thank you for coming, I said, genuinely meaning it. It meant a lot. Thanks for having me. He hesitated, then added, They're planning an ambush. I paused in loading the dishwasher. What kind of ambush? Dad's having people over after church tomorrow. The Bissets, the Crawfords, the whole old guard. They're going to discuss your situation and decide on a united approach. I felt a flare of anger. They're holding a council about me, like I'm some kind of problem to be managed? Welcome to the Reed family methodology, he said dryly. When direct control fails, mobilize the social troops. What exactly are they hoping to accomplish? Best case? Pressure you to fall back in line, attend family functions, be the good daughter who doesn't embarrass them publicly. He hesitated. Worst case? They're discussing financial leverage. My blood ran cold. Meaning? Dad was asking about your client list, specifically which ones have connections to Reed Ventures or our social circle. The implication was clear. My father was considering using his considerable influence to pressure my clients. He wouldn't, I said, but without conviction. Carter's expression was grim. You challenged his authority publicly. In his mind, that justifies any response. I leaned against the counter, suddenly exhausted. So what do? Beat them to the punch, he suggested. Control the narrative. How? You're the PR genius. If this were a client facing a potential crisis, what would you advise? Thought for a moment, professional instincts kicking in. Get ahead of the story. Frame it before someone else does. Secure key allies. He nodded. Exactly. But these are our parents, Carter, not some corporate entity. They stopped acting like parents a long time ago, he said quietly. Now they're just people trying to maintain control, and you need to decide what you're willing to sacrifice to keep your freedom. After he left, I stood on my terrace, looking out at the city lights. For the first time, my beautiful new home felt like a fortress under siege rather than a sanctuary. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. We expect you at Sunday dinner tomorrow. 4 p.m., your father insists. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop and began to write, fingers flying across the keyboard as a plan took shape. If they wanted to control the narrative, they were going to discover they were facing a master of the craft. By the time I went to bed, I had drafted a statement, prepared a strategy, and made peace with the knowledge that tomorrow would change my relationship with my family forever. Either way, there was no going back. Sunday morning dawned bright and clear. I woke early, my mind already racing with preparations for the day ahead. Instead of dressing for church and dinner as I would have in the past, I pulled on jeans and a sweater and headed to my home office. The plan I'd developed overnight was simple but effective. While my parents gathered their social army to discuss my situation, I would be hosting a virtual roundtable with the tech industry's most influential women, discussing the importance of independence and self-investment. I'd made the calls last night, to clients, mentors, industry leaders I'd connected with over the years. The response had been overwhelming. Women who had navigated their own paths through male-dominated industries, who had faced family expectations and cultural pressures, who had built empires despite being told to think smaller. They all said yes. By noon, everything was in place. The Zoom link was ready, social media announcements had been scheduled, and I'd invited selected journalists to attend. The roundtable would begin at 4 p.m., exactly when I was expected at the Reed family dinner. My phone rang. Carter. They know, he said without preamble. Someone saw your announcement. Mom's having what can only be described as a controlled meltdown. How bad? She's already called 3 people to cancel dinner. Dad's locked himself in his study. I think they're regrouping. I took a deep breath. Are you okay? You're in the crossfire because of me. I'm fine, he assured me. Actually, I told them about Lighthouse this morning. So they have 2 rebellious children to deal with now. We're dividing their forces. Despite everything, I laughed. We sound like we're planning a military campaign. In the Reed family, isn't that exactly what this is? He wasn't wrong. My parents had always approached family matters like strategic engagements, positioning children and achievements like pieces on a chessboard. What's your next move? he asked. I'm going forward with the round table. If they want to frame me as problematic or unstable, I'll show the world exactly who I am instead. Need backup? I hesitated. You sure you want to be associated with this? It might burn bridges for you too. Those bridges were leading me nowhere I wanted to go, he said simply. Send me the link. I'll be there. At 3 o'clock, my phone rang again. My father this time. I let it go to voicemail. Savannah, his voice was tight with controlled anger. Cancel whatever publicity stunt you're planning. This family discussion will happen with or without your cooperation. Your behavior reflects on all of us, and we will not tolerate further embarrassment. Sunday dinner, 4 o'clock. Be there. No, please. No acknowledgement of my achievements or my independence. Just commands, as always. I deleted the message and continued preparing for the round table. At 3:45, I settled in my home office, adjusting the camera to perfectly frame me against the backdrop of the San Francisco skyline. I wore a simple blue dress, professional but approachable, and had arranged my grandmother's crystal vase with fresh flowers visible in the background. At 3:55, my mother called. I declined. At 3:58, my father texted, "This is your last chance." At 4 p.m. exactly, I went live. Welcome to Investing in Yourself, Women, Wealth, and Independence. I began, smiling warmly at the camera. I'm Savannah Reed, founder of Horizon Communications, and I'm joining you from my new home in San Francisco. The participants appeared on screen, 15 of the tech industry's most accomplished women, faces, arranged in a grid alongside mine. Recent events in my personal life have sparked important conversations about women's financial independence, the expectations placed on us by family and society, and the power of investing in ourselves, I continued. Today, we're bringing that conversation into the open. For the next hour, we discussed everything: the challenges of building careers while managing family expectations, the double standards applied to women who prioritize professional achievement, the transformative power of financial independence. I shared my story openly but carefully, focusing on the universal themes rather than family-specific grievances. I didn't name names or air dirty laundry. Instead, I spoke about the importance of self-recognition when external validation isn't forthcoming. Sometimes, I said, the most powerful thing we can do is to celebrate ourselves, our achievements, our milestones, our growth, especially when others don't. Comments and questions poured in from viewers around the world. Women sharing similar experiences, men expressing support, young professionals asking for advice. Halfway through, I noticed a particular comment in the chat. My sister is showing us all what courage looks like. Proud doesn't begin to cover it. Carter Reed. Tears pricked at my eyes, but I maintained my composure. As we approached the end of the hour, one of the panelists asked the question I'd been both expecting and dreading. Savannah, your gift to myself post went viral because it struck a chord with so many people. What would you say to women who are struggling with the decision to invest in themselves when it might disappoint others? I took a deep breath. I'd say that disappointment is often a sign you're growing beyond the boundaries others have set for you. And that's not just okay, it's necessary. The people who truly love you will adjust their expectations. The ones who can't, well, that tells you something important too. When the round table ended, I sat quietly in my office, emotionally drained, but strangely peaceful. My phone showed 17 missed calls, 14 from my mother, 3 from my father, but there were also hundreds of messages from viewers, thanking me for my candor, sharing their own stories, expressing solidarity. The doorbell rang. I tensed, half expecting to find my parents standing there, ready to continue the confrontation in person. Instead, the concierge's voice came through the intercom. Ms. Reed, there's a delivery for you. Downstairs, I found a stunning arrangement of sunflowers, my favorite, with a card that read simply, "To new beginnings. Proud of you. Carter." I was arranging them in my grandmother's vase when my phone rang again. This time, it was Margot. "I watched your discussion," she said. "Magnificent, my dear. Absolutely magnificent." "Thank you," I replied, feeling the weight of her approval like a warm blanket. "Have you heard from them?" "Your mother called me immediately after. She's processing." Meaning she's never seen you like this. Poised, confident, leading. It's disrupting her entire understanding of who you are. And my father? Margot's sigh was eloquent. "William is more complicated. His pride is wounded, But beneath that, I think there's a grudging respect. You outmaneuvered him at his own game. It wasn't a game to me, I said quietly. It was my life. I know, dear. And that's what they need to understand. After we hung up, I poured myself a glass of wine and walked out to the terrace. The sun was setting, painting the sky in vivid streaks of orange and pink. In the distance, I could just make out the Reed family estate on Pacific Heights, its windows glowing warmly in the gathering dusk. For the first time, I looked at that house not with longing or resentment, but with a kind of detached clarity. It was beautiful, certainly, historic, impressive, but it was also a gilded cage, a place where worth was measured in social connections and appearances, where achievements were valuable only if they reflected well on the family name. My phone buzzed with a text from Carter. Mom and Dad have gone silent. I think you broke the system. I smiled, typing back, Good. Maybe now we can build something better. As night fell over San Francisco, I stayed on my terrace, watching the city lights flicker. To life. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new conversations, perhaps even new confrontations. But tonight, in this space I had created for myself, I was exactly where I needed to be. Free. 3 days after the round table, I arrived at Horizon's offices to find a familiar town car parked outside. My father's driver nodded respectfully as I passed. Ms. Reed, he said, your father is waiting. Upstairs. My heart hammered in my chest, but I kept my expression neutral. Thank you, James. The elevator ride to the 18th floor gave me time to collect myself. This confrontation was inevitable. I'd prepared for it, but having it happen in my professional space felt significant. My father had come to my territory, not summoned me to his. I found him standing by the windows in my corner office, looking out at the view of the Bay Bridge. He turned as I entered, his expression unreadable. Impressive operation you've built here, he said by way of greeting. Thank you, I replied, setting my bag down and taking a seat behind my desk. The positioning was deliberate. Him standing, me seated in my place of authority. He remained silent for a moment, studying me with new eyes. Your round table has generated quite a response. The Chronicle ran a feature. 3 business journals have requested interviews. I'm aware. The Montgomery's daughter cited you in her decision to decline Stanford Law and pursue her startup instead. Victoria Montgomery called your mother in tears. I raised an eyebrow. And this concerns me because actions have consequences, Savannah. He moved to sit in the chair across from my desk, especially public ones. I'm well aware of consequences, Dad. I've built a career helping clients navigate them. He nodded slowly. Yes, you have. More successfully than I realized. The acknowledgement, small as it was, caught me off guard. Your mother is hurt, he continued. She believes you've publicly rejected the family. I didn't reject the family. I rejected being invisible within it. His eyes narrowed slightly. You've never been invisible. Haven't I? I leaned forward. When was the last time you asked about my work? My achievements? My life? When was the last time you celebrated me with even a fraction of the enthusiasm you show for Carter? We've always supported you. No, I interrupted firmly. You've always tolerated me. There's a difference. He fell silent, his expression shifting from controlled authority to something less certain. The Reed name opened doors for you, he finally said. Did it? Name one client I acquired because of our family connection. Just one. He frowned. Westlake Technologies. James Westlake is my golf partner. James Westlake's daughter Sophie hired Horizon because we successfully launched her. Best Friend's fashion app. The Reed name never came up. Benson Media Group then. Thomas Benson sits on 3 boards with me. Thomas Benson's company came to us after we handled crisis communications for their main competitor. He'd never heard of William Reed's daughter. With each example he offered, I countered with the actual path that had led clients to Horizon. None had involved the Reed name or connections. Finally, he sat back, a strange expression crossing his face. You really did build this on your own. Yes, I said simply. I did. He stood abruptly and walked back to the window, his back to me. When he spoke again, his voice had lost its edge. Your grandfather used to say I was too controlling, that I measured success by how well I could manage other people's lives. He turned to face me. I thought he was wrong. I remained silent, waiting. The round table, he said. It was impressive, well executed, strategic. Coming from William Reed, this was extraordinary praise. You outmaneuvered me, he admitted. Used my own tactics against me. but with more finesse, more humanity. It wasn't about winning, Dad, wasn't it? He raised an eyebrow. You controlled the narrative, reframed the story, gathered allies. That's straight from my playbook. The difference is that I did it to claim my own life, not to control someone else's. He nodded slowly. Fair point. Another silence fell between us, less tense than before. Your mother wants to have dinner, he finally said. Just the four of us. No audience, no social agenda. I hesitated. What would be the purpose? To start again, or try to. He looked suddenly older, the lines around his eyes more pronounced. I won't pretend I fully understand what's happened these past weeks, but I recognize a shift when I see one. And what exactly has shifted? The balance of power, he said bluntly. You and Carter have made it clear you won't be managed anymore. We can either adapt to that reality or lose you both entirely. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even a full acknowledgement of the deeper issues. But from William Reed, it was unprecedented. When? I asked. Tomorrow night. Your mother thought perhaps your place, if you're willing. The request surprised me. They were asking to come to my territory, my sanctuary. 7 o'clock, I said after a moment. I'll cook. He nodded, moving toward the door. But he paused before leaving, turning back to face me. Your post, he said. The one about your penthouse. You called it a gift to yourself. Yes. What we never gave you, he said quietly, wasn't the material things. It was the recognition, the celebration of who you are, not just what you could do for the family. Before I could respond, he was gone. I sat at my desk for a long time afterward, trying to process what had just happened. My father hadn't apologized. He hadn't promised transformation, but he had seen me, really seen me, perhaps for the first time. Later that evening, Carter came by the penthouse, bringing wine and takeout from our favorite Thai restaurant. Dad came to see you, he asked as we sat on the terrace. Yes, he invited himself to dinner. Tomorrow. Here, with Mom. Carter whistled low. William Reed, coming to you instead of summoning you to the family estate? That's seismic. What about you? Has he spoken to you since you told them about Lighthouse? We had a long talk yesterday, he said. He asked to see my business plan, then actually offered useful feedback instead of dismissing it. Progress, I murmured. Baby steps. Carter agreed. Mom's having a harder time adjusting. Her entire identity is wrapped up in the family's social position. And we're threatening that. We're redefining it, he corrected, expanding it beyond her control. We ate in companionable silence for a while, the city lights twinkling below us. What will you say to them tomorrow? He finally asked. I considered the question carefully. That I'm not rejecting them or the family. I'm just rejecting the terms of engagement. That I want a relationship, but one based on mutual respect and genuine interest. And if they can't give that, I looked out at the skyline, feeling a strange sense of peace. Then I'll continue building a life that fulfills me, with or without their approval. Carter raised his glass. To rewriting the rules. I clinked my glass against his. To writing our own stories. That night, I pulled out the photograph Margot had given me, 6-year-old me with my homemade birthday cake. I placed it on my bedside table, a reminder of how far I'd come. Tomorrow would bring another chapter in the Reed family saga. But for the first time, I wasn't anxious about what my parents would think or say or demand. I was simply curious to see if they could adapt to the new reality, one where their children were authors of their own lives, not characters in a story their parents had written. Either way, I would be okay. More than okay. I would be myself. At precisely 7 o'clock, the elevator doors opened, revealing my parents. My mother clutched a bouquet of lilies, my favorite flowers, though I couldn't. Remember ever telling her that? While my father carried a bottle of wine. Your home is beautiful, Savannah, my mother said, her eyes taking in the soaring ceilings and panoramic views. Truly stunning. Thank you, I replied, accepting the flowers. Come in. I'd spent the day preparing, not just the meal, but myself. This dinner felt momentous, a potential turning point in our family dynamic. I'd chosen to cook my grandmother's recipes, dishes from my father's mother, who had always shown me a quiet kindness absent in my parents. We moved to the living room, an awkward quartet trying to find new footing. Carter caught my eye and gave a subtle nod of encouragement. How is Lighthouse progressing? I asked him, deliberately bringing his new venture into the conversation. He smiled. We're finalizing our first school district partnership. 10 schools in Oakland will be using our platform starting next month. That's wonderful, I said genuinely. Yes, it is, my father added, surprising us both. Carter showed me the platform yesterday. The adaptive learning algorithms are impressive. My mother looked between them, clearly trying to adjust to this new reality where my father discussed Carter's independent business with interest rather than dismissal. And Horizon? She asked, turning to me. Your roundtable has certainly raised the firm's profile. We've had 17 new client inquiries this week, I acknowledged, and 3 speaking engagement offers. I always knew you were good with publicity, she said, but I never realized just how strategic you are. Coming from Elizabeth Reed, this was significant praise. Dinner was ready, and we moved to the dining room, where I'd set the table with my grandmother's china, pieces Carter had quietly brought me from the family home. These are Mother Reed's dishes, my father noted, running a finger along the gold rim of a plate. Carter thought they belonged here, I explained. He was right, my father said, quietly. We served ourselves family style, another departure from the formal service typical of Reed family dinners. The conversation flowed more easily than I'd expected, focusing on our work, current events, neutral topics, until my mother set down her fork and looked directly at me. I watched your roundtable again last night, she said. All of it. I waited, unsure where this was heading. You spoke about celebrating yourself when others don't, she continued, about the importance of recognition. Yes, it made me think about all your birthdays, all your achievements. Her voice wavered slightly. All the times I failed to see you. The admission hung in the air between us. Why? I asked simply. Why was it so hard to celebrate me the way you celebrated Carter? She looked down at her plate, then back up at me. Because you didn't need it the way he did. I blinked, confused. What? Carter needed constant reinforcement, validation, direction, she explained. You were always so self-sufficient, so capable. I thought you didn't need the same attention. Everyone needs recognition, Mom, I said quietly. Everyone needs to be seen. I see that now, she admitted. Too late, perhaps. It's not too late, Carter interjected. That's why we're here, isn't it? To start again? My father cleared his throat. Your mother and I have been doing a lot of thinking these past days about the family we've created, the dynamics we've fostered, or failed to foster. And, I prompted, and we've gotten many things wrong, he said simply. Prioritized. Appearances over substance. Control over connection. It wasn't quite an apology, but from William Reed, it was unprecedented. We'd like to try again, my mother added, to build a different kind of relationship with both of you. What would that look like? I asked. More listening, my father suggested. Less directing. Genuine interest in your lives and work, my mother added. Not just how they reflect on the family name. And recognition, Carter said firmly, celebrating Savannah's achievements as enthusiastically as mine. My mother nodded. Yes, that most of all. I felt tears threatening and blinked them back. I'd like that. We can't promise perfection, my father cautioned. Habits of decades don't change overnight. We're not asking for perfection, I replied. Just, effort, awareness, growth. We finished dinner and moved back to the living room for coffee. The conversation shifted to lighter topics. A film Carter had seen, a new restaurant that had opened downtown, my plans for decorating the guest bedroom. As the evening drew to a close, my mother asked for a tour of the penthouse. I showed her each room, watching her take in the space I'd created. In my office, she paused before a wall of photographs, images of Horizon's growth, client celebrations, team milestones. You've built something remarkable, she said softly. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. In that moment, something shifted between us. Not forgiveness exactly, but a pathway toward it. After they left, Carter lingered. Well, he said, helping me load the dishwasher. That was surreal, I suggested. I was going to say promising, but surreal works too. He closed the dishwasher door. Do you think they meant it? About changing? I considered the question carefully. I think they want to. Whether they can is another matter entirely. Small steps, he suggested. Small steps, I agreed. 1 year later, I stood on my terrace, champagne in hand, watching the sunset on. My 34th birthday. Behind me, voices and laughter spilled from the open doors. My team from Horizon, friends, mentors, Carter and his Lighthouse co-founders. And yes, my parents. They had come early, helping with preparations. My mother had brought a cake she'd baked herself, imperfect but earnest. My father had given me a first edition of my favorite book, inscribed with a simple message. To Savannah, seen, valued, celebrated. The year hadn't been seamless. There had been missteps, old habits reasserting themselves, difficult conversations. But there had also been genuine effort, moments of connection, and a slow rebuilding of trust. Margot joined me on the terrace, her eyes taking in the gathering inside. "What do you think?" I asked her. "Are they really changing?" "People can change," she said thoughtfully, "when the alternative is losing something precious to them." I nodded, watching through the window as my mother laughed at something Carter said. My father engaged in conversation with one of my clients. "You know," Margot continued, "the real miracle isn't their change, it's yours. Mine? You stood in your worth without needing their validation to confirm it. That's the gift you gave yourself, far more valuable than any penthouse." I smiled, thinking about the journey of the past year. From invisibility to recognition, from seeking approval to claiming my own value, from silence to voice. "To gifts we give ourselves," I said, raising my glass. "The most important kind," Margot agreed. Inside, someone called my name. It was time to cut the cake. Open. Presents. Be celebrated. I took one last look at the glittering city below, the life I had built stretching out before me like the lights of San Francisco. Brilliant, complex, beautiful. Then I turned and walked inside, toward the warmth of connection, the joy of recognition, and the peace that comes from knowing that, regardless of anyone else's ability to see your light, you can always choose to shine. Sometimes, I thought, as I blew out the candles on my cake surrounded by the people who truly saw me, the most radical thing you can do is choose yourself, fully, loudly, and without apology, especially when no one else will. And in that choice lies true power, the quiet, unapologetic kind.